So I've been doing a lot of these videos lately on this tertiary, tritiary annex channel because I this is the place where I'm just able to kind of dump out my thoughts. And what, like I say, whether or not it's seen, that's not the goal. It's not a popularity contest. It's not about being liked for me. It's about putting the. It's about challenging the source, and I'm not talking about the source as being the main source because whatever we're being controlled by, it's psychically on a subscalar scale level, reason, ratio, degree. Um, I think we're all in amazement that something that is such a lesser being, state of being, could take over a greater state of being and becoming. And that does happen. It happens through our own, um, to the natural physics, in which you could say evolution, where lesser societies infiltrate on one in one area or another and take over greater civilizations, where everybody is sort of captivated by their own physics. You know, you could look at the Greco-Roman era and wonder what the hell happened there, or more so, point of origins of how high technology is used to wipe out an entire historicity and race, and to successfully occult, from the giants to, the elongated skulls, what that alludes to Tartaria and mud floods, and then how we vet one another, through or back into the caste system, where, oh, you're not rich, you didn't sell out, so I'm not going to listen to you. Wait, did I just contradict myself? And it's like, listen to the truth, listen to the word, stop judging the messenger. you know yeah, you can get into history, you can get into Paul Revere, you can get into Adam Weishaupt, you can get into the Illuminati, you can get into John Todd, you can see things through many different derivations and whatever you're comfortable with, but at some point the truth is just the truth, and everything else is just sort of this masquerade of animism leading into Neoplatonism, leading directly to what Whitehead talked about. And then all you have is a meme or a cartoon at the end of the day, and you have to see yourself for what you are. But I'm not going to be doing these impromptu soliloquy videos anymore. It's not going to be something that I focus on for a good 13 years plus, but we're going to call it 13 years because I did have a choice all the way up to 2012 to turn around and do certain things. And I was prompted into this sort of death field, this death matrix, this black hole where I didn't decide to do this. I was trying to make, anytime you come to a place where you have to make a decision, where you're going to be selfless, or you're going to focus in on the self, which most anybody, in fact, I would venture to say that anyone that's out there, from Gary Nolan to Cliff High, they never broke the chain of their own survival, right? And they wanted to dip their feet in both sides. And out of that, you have this very concrete thinker at the center, which I think, admittedly, they would look at themselves in the mirror and say, yeah, I mean, how the hell you're going to make me feel guilty for surviving, for doing cutting edge research and this and that. And it's like, you weren't doing cutting edge research, and it. You were feeding back into a broken system. You did take the blue pill, and now you're trying to posit and posture yourself as if you're taking the red pill, when you took data sets that were of the popular norms and standards. You didn't try to shake things up and go, oh wow, this can be bettered in some way, and do I have the primary principles to project this back out? You wanted, like in the weird case of all the people that are coming from Stanford and Berkeley, there is a fucking demon, right? At the base of all of your understanding, where you were seduced by your own intellectualism and what looked like a quasi fringe state going, down Highway 1 that we're nearby, past Nepenthe, um, and going into what was that area down there? My son just went in there and said it was one weird ass place that he was going in there to do a gig, and I think he might have walked right back out, but he was invited to go play music for these people, Eschaton, and you look at the history of that, and it's like it takes you back in this, like Gary Nolan, the big uh, spoiler alert there is that the whole Soul Foundation is based on um, this, and it's like you can't reduce me. I'm a genius. I'm a gay genius from the planet Genius, and even though I have this other life, how much do you have? It's this Irish person waving their finger in your face, right? It's like, look, dude, you don't really know as much as you think you do, and everything that has vetted you and giving you the opportunity that you call opportunity, you care about what everyone in the caste system through this populist movement thinks about you. That makes you a contaminated field of information. You are no longer running double blind studies, and you are no longer feeding into the infrared reliability. You are compromised, dude. It's you who's compromised, right? And it's like now you're studying it and you're stuck into this delusional state where you're just refracting back on yourself. You live in your own fart machine, and South Park should do a character on you, but it's unnecessary. It's superfluous because, and yeah, there's a lot of contempt for it because there isn't a place for truth. And then even more so on Danny Jones, you see like it was a big letdown to see Jeffrey Mishlove, and you could say, well, he's older, but to see how his motor neurons were hardwired into presuppositions, and it was kind of like you just went into this paranormal type of research, this phenomenology, because you thought that it might be an easier way to go through and get more attention in your journalistic pursuits, and that it might be fun and fantastical, but you haven't really come up with anything, you know. And it's like the thing about this society is all of your heroes will die. You're going to realize that they were just narcissists reveling in their own reflection, and that they were bought off a long, long time ago, and that when you see these people who were visited by these UFOs early on, from Robert Bigelow, on down, you start to see that there's a commonality here, and then you realize that a certain download of information and a prioritization to now get all these nodes into factoring out what they don't even see the short-sighted hubris that they live under, the fact that now there are all these mutants dropping off the ass of pseudo academics, right? And that is our school system, right down into John Dewey, and producing such artifacts such as Elon Musk, who, by the way, him doing this whole Heil Hitler thing, you want to know what he was saying? Is he was saying to his little weird community of people out there that those who understand that I am doing this following Trump, the MAGA movement, that I recognize that he's Mussolini, and by being closer to the hip, when the time comes, I will make the right choice through my own moral master morality. Right? You have somebody who has, but you have to understand what allowed these people to go through the labyrinth or the mechanism. Right? So I don't mean to go into a diatribe, but and I didn't think that I would have such strong feelings, and I won't mention all the other people who don't really, who aren't really even worthy of a sort of dismantling. I think that the reason that Gary Nolan is so sore about um, uh, Neil deGrasse Tyson is that he sees himself in Neil deGrasse Tyson, and that he is even more a form of a darker form of a sellout. That he's doing it on a mass scale, you know. And I think that this could be better clarified when you really look at the reduction of what happened there with Diane Pasulka and Tim Taylor, and the fact that what God do you serve? And it's like at the end of the day, you are all you think of yourselves as the master heads that survived through memory, through agency, that you are given some sort of golden ticket like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, that you somehow transposed yourself through some Dionysian sex worship cult, and now you are sitting at the godhead of a big pile of shit is where we are. We are in this pile of shit because of pseudo quasi scientists and theological thinkers and people who are involved in the armature of the space agency, right? I mean, you're getting into human immunization, uh, basic tenets of belief systems and edicts. People who really think of themselves like Diane Pasulka. What's more relevant, you or Ayn Rand, in the advancement not only of the human condition or the female mind, standing in opposition to these edicts, right? Or are you just sort of pandering and seducing your way, right? Though it's intellectual, you're going into the coitus of in conversation with these people to buy your damn book, right? Or again, Gary Nolan, to see himself as such an enlightened figure, right? To probably pride himself on being in the same homosexual gay relationship with the same man for the last 40 years, right? And to have a diatribe ready and available to open up on anyone, right? And the great thing is about me is that I'm nobody. I'm nobody saying this, but if somebody hears it that is negatively affected by these people, like, you can't sue me. I've got nothing. I've got nothing for you to take. Um, so you get into this area where you have somebody who's working on a multi-scalable level, not only with the human biology, um, and selling off, building up and selling off companies of high valuation, but now wants to be this sort of mastermind of how this matriculation comes into being through this metaphysical form. And you're not going to look at where it comes from or its origin or its source. But you're going to stand back and conjecture and have these highbrow intellectual debates that really equal nothing and offer no advancements. You have nothing to say. You're not standing on a side of belief or faith. No, as long as you get paid by the end of the day, that's what you really care about. And it's kind of, well, what do you have? You're just an old guy yourself that's standing on a pulpit and has some sort of problems and is just sort of spewing out. No, there is an undeniable place in time, a junction point, if you will, where you are either choosing this red pill, blue pill scenario, and that you have to admit that you chose the blue pill. You have to admit that you are spreading a false doctrine out into the world. And no, I'm not talking about standing behind Christendom. I'm saying that if you're going to open your mouth up about such things and come off like you are, at the top of this caste system in Palo Alto at Stanford University, and that you're sitting as a god amongst men, and that It doesn't matter all the people outside of you, as long as the people are giving reverence back to you, right? That, in other words, as long as you took that blue pill and it is connecting you with a localized effort of seeming to help multitudes of people, from cancer treatments to really, mental mind operations that get into memory and memory care, that you have to understand that for you to be allowed through that airport, right? We're getting into Diane Pasulka, American Cosmic, right? And her trying to create this occultic, secretive discourse by calling Tim Taylor Tyler, right? Like Tyler Durden, and to create this mystique, right? Um, you're all full of shit, and including Lou Elizondo, most especially Tom DeLonge and that bullshit there, this disinformation campaign. Jake Barber, who's a sellout. You're all a bunch of fucking sellouts, and you are nothing more than robotic units or arms of a mastermind control system that didn't have your display of who you are shows that the cream didn't have to rise, right? That you didn't have to go through this long process of filtration and cultivation to come up with dimwits like you. You just had to download enough information to say, as long as you sign this contract with Metastopheles, right? That you as Faust, right, are able to pretend to yourself, and that everyone around you will agree that you helped everyone, right? And then at the end of the day, you were there building altars, right? And that you are following into this Dionysian worship cult, sex cult, Thelemic sex cult, where all you're really doing is working for the Church of Scientology. What are you saying that's in juxtaposition of this stance? You can't. There's no way you can refute it. Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, however you want to follow this trail back to and through Mormonism, back onto the Masonic order, back onto a Zionist movement, back into the Talmud and any other Jewish literature, whether or not you even see your place in it, is that you are a fact. You're a tick on the monster's ass. You don't even really want to know what you're seeing. As long as you have been in total compliance, you are walking along with it. You're a part of it, but you're just the part that gets paid man money, right? And it couldn't be more pathetic that the people who are seen today as the rising agents, right? That you could put a halo around their head, right? And to wonder if a halo is just like a fishbowl, an electromagnetic fishbowl that's seen from a certain perspective, right? And that the people of old would look up at these other people who had memory, they had agency, supposedly. They had in the caste system, in the populist order, they were blessed, right? They were confers to the king, right, or the queen. They worked in such a scale that there's no way we would ever really we talk about Shakespeare or Longfellow or what Machiavelli wanted to be, right, where Lorenzo, he was trying to appeal to a midwit state or stage of an autocratic of a monarch system, where each one was just trying to be an autocratic ruler in their own bubble, right, in their own geographical bubble. So as long as they dealt out enough pain to their people and kept suppressed, it's the same mechanism of control, right? It's the same. It's the same indoctrination and energy matrix that Jordan Maxwell talked about, right, that he saw. And the point is that you don't see people such as myself, Jordan Maxwell, David Icke, or anyone else, Michael Tassarian, who I believe was a total sellout in the ways of becoming a full-fledged warlock himself. I see Cliff High as being the same thing, and I think that Diane Pasulka, Gary Nolan, and this Tim Taylor are actually trying to covertly place themselves as saints and wizards that are the teacher's pet. And if you could even take a look at the teacher and see what is really being worshipped here, you would stand back and see that they full well knew and had to know, even probably signing on the dotted line, when we're talking about Faust, right? That they actually sold their souls off to maybe not even a proverbial devil or Satan, but something that comes startlingly close.